We continue now at the top of Daf Kuf Mem Amud Aleph in Meseches Bava Basra. This is Bava Basra Daf 140a. On the previous summit, the Gemara brought the Mishnah which said that if there's a large estate that's being inherited, so then the sons they inherit, and the daughters they are supported, they get mizonos, and they get mizonos either until they become adults or until they get married. But the Mishnah said that if it's a small estate that's being inherited, so then the daughters, again, they get supported, they get the mizonos, but the sons, they have to go door to door, they have to beg for their sustenance, they don't get anything. And the Gemara asked what exactly is considered to be a small inheritance. The Gemara said a small inheritance is if it's not enough to give both the sons and the daughters mizonos until the daughters become adults. And so the Gemara then asked, if you have a small inheritance such as this, where again, it's not enough to support them until the daughters become adults, so in that situation, shakali lahu banos lakulu, are the daughters going to take everything in that situation? Are we saying that the sons get nothing? And the Rashbam explains, shakli lahu banos lakulu bitmiya, this is being asked as a question. Tekevin dekaris lumuat, and since you're saying that's considered a small inheritance, imkain lo yitlu behen klum habanim, so then the sons apparently are not going to get anything. Because it says in our Mishnah that when it's a small inheritance, when it's a small amount of property, habanim yishalu al psachim, that the sons, they have to ask door to door, they have to collect money for themselves. Is that possible that that's what happens? And so the Gemara continues, Elo amar Rava, rather Rava says, Motzian lahen mizonos levanos ad sheyivgru, you take sustenance for the daughters until they become adults, v'hashar lebanim, and then whatever is remaining will go to the sons. Again, this is talking about a situation where there's not enough in terms of mizonos for the sons and the daughters until the daughters become adults, and so in this situation, the daughters are going to get whatever they need until they become adults. That's how much mizonos they get, and if there is extra, if there is remaining, that goes to the sons. And the Rashbam explains, V'ashar lebanim, the rest goes to the sons. V'haidukatani yishalu al hapsachim. Now, when it says in the Mishnah that they have to ask door to door, that they have to collect money for themselves, hainu mishahotziu oso hashar b'hotzos mizonos. That just means once they've spent whatever was given to the sons as far as mizonos, so then they have to ask, then they have to be yishalu al hapsachim. Mikan v'elach habanos yizanu ad sheyivgru. From that point on, so again, the daughters, they get supported until they become adults, v'habanim, but the sons at that point, yishalu al hapsachim, so they have to ask door to door, they have to collect money for themselves. And the Gemara continues, Pshita, it is obvious, Merubin v'nismatu, let's say originally there's a large inheritance, but then it gets smaller, it's diminished. So at that point, Kvar Zachu behen Yorshin, so the Yorshim, the heirs, they've already been Zoche. And the Rashbam explains, Pshita merubin v'nismatu, it's obvious if it's a large inheritance that gets smaller, meaning B'shas misa hayu merubin, at the time that the father died, there was a large inheritance, there was a lot of property. V'achshav hokira mizonos, and now the amount of the inheritance is smaller because mizonos became more expensive, so therefore it's smaller relative to what it costs for the mizonos. Or what might have happened is something got ruined with the property, and therefore it's now worth less. So now it's such a small amount that you actually don't have enough for mizonos for both the sons and the daughters until the time that the daughters become adults. So in that situation, again, when it became diminished, kvar zachu behen yorshin, so already when it was a large estate, the heirs, the yorshim already got what they got, meaning b'shas misas avian, at the time that their father died, the yorshin inherited. The karina behu nechasim merubim, at that point in time it was called a large estate. V'yichu habonos chelkon hamagiam kefi shuma shel shas misas aviam. So again, the daughters took whatever is a portion to them according to the evaluation that was made at the time of the death of their father. V'habonim yirshu chelkam, and the sons, they inherited their portion. Shahaya magiam ba'osasha, whatever they were supposed to get at that time. Everyone got the percentage, so to speak, of what they were supposed to get, and therefore, v'chol ma'shechasra nechasim, at this point, if the property has now depleted, it's going to be equal across the board. Chasru lebanos ulevanim l'chol echad kafi chelko haroi lo. It's going to be diminished for both the daughters and the sons, each one according to whatever portion that they inherited, and that's what's going to happen again in such a situation. But the Gemara continues, mu'atin v'nisrabu, let's say it's the other way around. It's a small inheritance at the time that the father died, but then it increases in value. So what would be the halacha over there? B'reshus yorshin kaimi hilkach b'reshus yorshin shavuach. On the one hand, you can say that it's in the possession of the yorshim, and therefore it's in their possession that it goes up in value, that it's enhanced. Odilma, or maybe saluke misalke yorshin mehach, we actually remove the yorshim from over here in this particular situation. And the Rashbam explains, Vinis Rabu Shehuzla Mizonos, in this case, the value of the inheritance was more because now Mizonos became cheaper, went down in value, so everything is actually worth more. So Mahu, what would be in this situation? Mimoti ravcha lebonim v'yitlu moser nechasim ha'odef mechdei mizonos bonos adshi. If on the one hand we could say all of this profit should go to the sons once the daughters are covered in terms of mizonos until they become adults, so everything else in terms of the increase should go to the sons. And the way the Shita Mekubetzes explains it, according to the Rashbam, the other side of the question is that the daughters, they should get all of the profits in this situation, because again, it started off as Nechasim Muatim, and the sons did not inherit anything, and therefore, they don't get any of the profits. That's the question of the Gemara. And the Gemara continues, Tashma, coming here the following proof. The Yomer Rabbi Yasi, Yomer Rabbi Yochanan, because Rabbi Yasi says that Rabbi Yochanan says, Yisomen shekidmu machru b'nechasim muatin. If orphans go ahead and they sell when it's a small amount of property as an inheritance, which they were not supposed to do, the sons are not supposed to sell anything, because again, by nechasim muatin, everything is essentially given to the daughters, unless there's a little extra for mizonos for the sons, but otherwise the sons don't really have an inheritance. But if they do go ahead and sell anyhow, the halach is masha machru machru, whatever they sell is considered to be sold. And the Rashbam explains, Yisomim shekidmu kodem shehamidu banos bedin, meaning before they go to court and the daughters are given what they're supposed to be given, umachru, they go ahead and they sell some of that property, afilu b'nechasim muatin, even if it's a situation of nechasim muatin, where really they're not going to be entitled to anything, masha machru machru, but whatever they sold is considered sold. De'ein motziin l'mazon ha'isha v'abanos minechasim mishubadim. When it comes to giving sustenance to the wife and to the daughters, you're not allowed to take from the buyers, because you can't take from the chasim mishubadim. There's no lien on the property in that sense, and so therefore once they sold it, so it's too late. V'kol shekein b'nechasim merubin, and it's for sure true when it comes to a large estate that's being inherited. For sure, then where they actually are yorshim of that estate, certainly that's going to be a good sale. Kidamer b'chsubas, like we say in ksubas, ha'achim sheshibdu motziin leparnasa ve'ein motziin lemizonos. That again, you can't take from the chasim mishubadim when it comes to mizonos. And in any case, Shema Amino, we see from here, Kevan she'im machru mechiras and mechira, since if the sons, if they sell, it's considered to be a good sale. So yesh len tfisas yad b'nechasim, apparently they do have some possession of the property. Vim nisrabu, and so therefore, if it does increase in value, yesh len chelak behen uzechusan behen omedes, they do have a portion in terms of that increase. And the Gemara continues, Yosef Rabbi Yirmiyah Kamed Rabbi Avo v'kaboy minei. Rabbi Yirmiyah was sitting in front of Rabbi Avo, and he asked him the following question: Al manuso mao shetamayit b'nechasim. What about his widow? She's entitled to mizonos. Do we take that into account in terms of determining whether it's nechasim merubim or nechasim muatim? Mi amrinon, do we say kevan de islam mizone, that since she does get mizonos, she gets sustenance mimata? So therefore, that also has to be deducted in terms of determining how large the inheritance is. Odilma, or maybe Kavan de ilu minsava lesla, since if she gets married she doesn't get, so hashtanami lesla. So now also it's not going to be included in our calculation. And imtim salomar Kavan de ilu minsava lesla hashtanami lesla. If you're going to say that since if she gets married she doesn't get, now also it's like she doesn't get. So basishta, what about the daughter of his wife? Sometimes there's a stipulation that she gets supported. Ma'oshatamait benechasim, does that lessen? Do we deduct that from the property in terms of determining whether it's considered nechasim merubim or nechasim muatim? Mi'amrinon, do we say kevan dechi minsavanami isla, since when she gets married she still gets umemata, therefore it is going to be considered deducted. Odilma, or maybe kevan deilu mesa lesla, since if she would die she wouldn't get velo memata, so therefore it shouldn't be deducted. Vimtim salomar, and if you're going to say kevan deilu mesa lesla velo memata, that since if she dies she doesn't get, therefore it shouldn't be deducted. So balchov, what if there's a creditor who's owed money? Ma'oshe yemai benechasim, is that something that we would take into account and deduct in terms of determining how much property there is? Do we say that since if he dies, it's still going to be collected because his heirs will be entitled to collect what he's owed, so therefore we should deduct? Or maybe since it still has not actually been collected, so we don't deduct that. And the Gemara continues, some ask the same series of questions, but in the other direction. They start from Balchov. Balchov, if there's a creditor, what's the halacha? Do we deduct from the property if there's a Balchov? And the Rashbam explains, again, his widow, do we deduct from the property because of the mizonos that she's supposed to get? Somebody dies, he leaves over sons and daughters. He also leaves over his widow. The halacha is she also requires mizonos while she is a widow. And what you have here is property that can support, it can be mizonos for the sons and daughters until the daughters become adults, which is technically technically considered to be just enough to be nechasim merubim. So mi amrinan, do we say kevan de islam mizone, since she gets support as well, memata, so we have to deduct that, v'lo mikro nechasim merubim, and then we will not say, it's not going to be called nechasim merubim, it's not going to be a large inheritance, and what would we do? Umafrishin mehanechasim mazon ha'isha v'habana, so then we would separate from the property enough support for the wife and the daughters ad sheyivgru until they become adults, v'hamoser labanim, and then whatever is left is going to go to the sons, to hamuatin ninu, because that would be considered nechasim muatin. Ula'achar sheyotziu, and after they finish whatever they finished, after the sons runs out, so then hamoser yishalu al psachim. Again, once they finish using whatever remained, they have to ask door to door, they have to collect money. That's one possibility. Oh, Dilmor, maybe, kevan di ilu minsabol leba'al les lemizone, since the widow, if she does get married, she's not entitled to mizonos, so lo mimata, so then we don't deduct, ucheman de les adami, so we don't count that at all against the amount, and so we're going to say therefore that again it's considered to be nechasim merubin, umotzian min ha-nechasim levanos kedei mizonon, and if that were the case, we'll do as follows. We'll take from the property for the daughters enough for their sustenance ad sheyivgru until they become adults. V'chol hashar yirshu habonim kedei nechasim merubim, all the rest, the sons will inherit, that's the halacha by nechasim merubim, to ha'almona lo mimata lehu, because the almona were not deducting because of her. V'karinan behu habonim yirshu v'habonos yizono, and then we're going to call it again where the sons inherit and the daughters, they get mizonos. Umechelek habonos lo tizon ha'almona imam, and it's from the portion of the daughters, the almona is not going to take anything from the portion of the daughters in that situation. The daughters are going to get their mizonos, the sons will then get their inheritance, and the sons will have to provide for the almona. And so the Rashbam now explains, V'hainu di'ika bein memata l'lo mata. So here's the nafkamina, here's the real difference between deducting or not deducting. Di'i memata, because if we do deduct, so then habonim yishalu, so then the sons, they have to ask, they go door to door to get sustenance. V'almona tizon, and the widow, she'll get her mizonos. V'ilo memata, now if we're not going to deduct, so then yizonu yachad ha'almona v'habonim. So if we're not deducting and we're considering it nechasim merubim, so then both the widow and the sons, they're going to get mizonos together. Aval habonos ein lahen lahafsid b'mizonosehem klal, and the daughters, they're not going to lose anything from their mizonos. Bein memata, bein lo mata. It doesn't matter if we deduct or not. They're always getting the mizonos they need. Bein b'nechasim merubim, bein b'nechasim muatin, because whether it's a large amount or a small amount, Tanan, we learned in the Mishnah, habonos izonu, that the daughters, they get support. Inami heicha de lo memata, or let's say it's a situation where we're not deducting, so mikru nechasim merubim, again, then it's going to be called nechasim merubim. V'afal pisha nesakva hayom olamachar melinase, and even though she's not going to get married right away, the widow, it might take some time until she gets married. Harehu kimerubin, it's considered like merubin, it's considered like it started off as a large inheritance, vinismatu, and maybe it became diminished afterwards, but it's really a large inheritance. The amrinan kvar zachu behen yorshin, again, we're going to say that the yorshim, they get a zechus, they already have a stake within the inheritance. V'yizonu shloshtan yachad bonim ubonos v'almanas. So again, all three are going to take together the sons and the daughters and the widow. Keinira shita zu be'enai, the Rashbam says this appears to be the proper explanation. And so to summarize the view of the Rashbam, in terms of the mizonos for the daughters, it makes no difference whether it's nechasim muatim or nechasim merubim. They're always going to get the same amount of sustenance, but it makes a difference with regards to the widow and the sons. If you're going to consider it to be nechasim merubim, then essentially they will share in whatever is remaining. The sons and the widow will share in that. But if you're going to say it's nechasim muatim, the almana, the widow, will get priority, and the sons, they will get anything that might be remaining. But if there's nothing remaining after it's given to the daughters and the widow, then the sons again will go door to door in order to collect. The Rashbam continues, Bas Ishto, let's say it's the daughter of his wife, meaning Misha Kibel Olav B'Shas Nisuin Lazon Bas Ishto Meish Acher. Somebody accepts upon himself at the time of marriage that he's going to support the daughter of his wife. Let's say it's a stepdaughter, it's from a different man. Chamei Shanim, he says he's going to support her for 5 years. V'meis, and then he dies. Umutal al Yorshin Lazona. So now it's the heirs, they're the ones that have to support her. Kevan diafagav de minsava Islam izone at chamesh shanim min hayorshim. When it comes to that daughter, she actually gets supported even if she gets married. She gets 5 years of support. Sharei chovu sheneschayv l'navian, because that's like a debt that the father has to her. So memata. So then again, we do deduct v'izonu hi v'habanos, and then you're going to say that she and the daughters, they're going to be supported. It's going to be considered nechasim muatin v'habanim yeshalu, and the sons, they're going to have to ask, they're going to have to beg. Or we say lo memata, maybe we don't deduct mikru merubin b'shas misa v'nismatu. Again, it's going to be considered to be a large inheritance at the time of death, but v'nismatu acharechem, but it got smaller after. Uchvar zachu yarshin, so therefore the yarshin already have a stake. V'habanos yizonu ad bagar, and the daughters, they'll be supported until they become adults. V'yos habas tizon iman, and that other daughter, she'll get together with the sons, but she's not going to take priority over the sons. And finally, the question was, Balchov Maushi Yamait. Let's say there's a creditor, does he deduct? Let's say there's just enough property to pay off the debt and to support the daughters. Do we say that we now deduct, and then the daughters will get mizonos, the sons won't get anything, they'll have to ask door to door. Or maybe it doesn't deduct, and then the sons and the daughters will get mizonos, until the time that the Balchov comes to collect. And then when he comes to collect them, yesh mosar, at that point in time, if there's anything remaining, yizonu bonus ad bagar, so then the daughters will get supported until they become adults, v'imlav, and if not, yafsidu, then they will lose out. And we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Kuf Mem Amud Beis.